What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, and at Valorant's core, it's all about the gunplay. And if you are consistently losing gunfights, you're gonna be just losing game after game, and it's gonna be impossible for you to climb the ladder. That's why in this video, we compiled the top 10 reasons you miss every shot in Valorant, and we're gonna tell you exactly what you can do about it, improve your aim, become a god tier gamer, and climb. But before we get started, the newly minted GameLeap website just released. We have high quality advanced guides and VOD reviews, in-depth mechanical courses, hero guides, anything you need to climb the ranks of Valorant. We got it. Do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about, and this is probably the biggest reason why you're missing a lot of your shots, it's because you haven't mastered counter-strafing. And some of you might say, maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. Yes, counter-strafing matters. Now, yes, it doesn't matter as much as it did in CSGO, but in Valorant, counter-strafing allows you to essentially stop your momentum and get that first shot accuracy instantly after you stop moving. All you have to do is when you're running in one direction, you tap the other direction before you either switch directions or you stop altogether. That change in momentum, there's going to be a middle ground in there where you're going to be first shot accurate, and that is the exact way that you want to take almost every single gunfight where you're pushing. If you're not sneaking around the map and you're pushing, then you need to be counter-strafing consistently. And the reason that learning how to counter-strafe matters is after you master it, you can move left really fast and be accurate, move right really fast, stop, be accurate. You can basically have maximum movement with no penalty for it. It basically allows you to freely move in any direction you want to at any time at full speed, be able to stop on a dime and instantly hit these shots. But mastering it can be pretty tricky, especially for those of you who have it came from CSGO. Now, if you're a true beginner, I would actually suggest you go turn on the movement error option in the crosshair. Just go practice in training room or go practice in free-for-all with it. It will show you exactly the moment where your accuracy is perfect and when it's not perfect, and it will let you master counter-strafing because you'll get a visual indicator of when you're actually being the most accurate. It's just a helpful tool that you can use, but eventually you're gonna wanna turn that off and it's just gonna be second nature to you. That's just something that I would suggest for newer players. Now, moving on to the next big reason why you're consistently losing these gunfights and missing every shot, it's because you're playing too passively when enemies know where you are. You see, in this game, no matter what Valorant does to try to fix it, there will always be Peeker's advantage. And Peeker's advantage means that this game favors the aggressor. We talked about why counter-strafing is so important, and Peeker's advantage is another reason why counter-strafing is essential, because you really want to be the person on the front foot. Now, a lot of people misunderstand why being aggressive matters, and they don't understand why they're dying in certain situations. Let's say that you're hiding in a cubby, right? If enemies know that you're in that cubby and they're aggressive and they aggressively peek you, they'll be able to actually swing the corner and kill you before you can return the fire. This is the Peeker's advantage. And at its core, if information is given about where you are, then you cannot be playing passive. You have to turn the tables on the enemy and be the one that swings them. Playing overly passive in an angle that enemies are aggressively checking will just get you killed just like that with little to no counterplay. Now, moving on to the third reason why you miss every shot, it's because you're over practicing the wrong kinds of aim. Now, there's really three big types of aim in a game like Valorant altogether. First, there's flicking aim, then there's tracking aim, and lastly, there's pre-aiming. Now, way too many people practice flicking aim. You see the Kovac aim trainer or the aim labs, you see people just go into the practice room, flick, 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 flick. Well, guess what? Flicking is really a tiny aspect of Valorant. You're not flicking all that much. Yes, it is useful to know how to do this, but this game is far less about flicking than all three of the types of aiming. I mean, that's the one that you lose the least amount, but it seems to be the one that people want to practice the most. Now, the next type of aim is tracking, which you do use a fair amount, but tracking is only just a alteration of pre-aiming. So pre-aiming is the most important, where you pre-aim angles basically due to crosshair placement and anticipation of where enemies are, and then tracking is going to be the tiny adjustments beyond that when you're tracking an enemy as they move or making tiny tracking adjustments to their head. Flicking will come in after you kill one enemy and you have to flick all the way across to another enemy, but because of the time to kill in this game, it's really one of those things that happens far less likely than the pre-aiming angles or the slight tracking angles. So you need to understand that there's an order of operations to things, like a hierarchy of how important certain things are to practice, and flicking would be at the bottom of that list, and pre-aiming and crosshair placement would be at the top of that list, but I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. Now, the next big mistake that could be having you lose gunfight after gunfight, and it's Insta Crouching too often. Now, crouching in general is going to work a little bit better versus better players because it's going to mess up where their crosshair is at because their crosshair is already head level. But against worse players, crouching often will just get you instantly killed. Now, a lot of times, especially when you're mid gunfight, crouching doesn't do anything. If you stop and start firing at an enemy and crouch, the only big use for doing that is either one, you're using an LMG and it increases the spray rate instantly, which is kind of a niche scenario. We're not going to talk about that. But if you're in a longer spray battle, of course, it can help you kind of control your spray a little bit more. That being said, in general, if you're not in a long spray battle or anything like that, you don't want to be just starting crouching before you even start firing at an enemy. It's an incredibly bad habit that a lot of people have, and it really could be holding you back. Now, you could, if you're pre-firing an angle or swinging an angle, you could definitely crouch prematurely to throw off someone's crosshair placement, but these are specific scenarios for crouching. It's not just like every single gunfight you're always in, you always insta crouch the second you start firing. It is a tool to be used in certain situations, not just something that you spam every single time you get in a gunfight. Now, the next big reason why you're consistently losing gunfights is very poor spray control. Now, there's two different scenarios that you run in with spray control. Either you need to reset your recoil compensation or you need to full commit to the spray. Now, there is an RNG component in every single spray, unfortunately, after about the first 4 bullets, so you really got to take that into consideration. Sometimes if you start firing and you're basically missing all over the place, you know you can't get that spray under control and you haven't connected with any shots, a lot of times it's better to just stop for a second, get that spray under control, and then try to commit to the kill. Other times, if you already did quite a bit of damage, it's better to commit to the kill rather than reset your spray so that you can kill that enemy and you don't have to reset, because that gives an opportunity for the enemy to turn the tables on you. Now, all of this also depends on your inner game sense. Sometimes you know inertly that you will die if you don't kill the enemy, and sometimes you have to play a little bit into RNG there. But of course, the more consistent that you get with identifying when to reset your spray control over when to commit to your spray, that will make you a far better player in the long run, and you're gonna win a lot more gunfights in general. Now, the next thing, this is going to be the 6th tip, but it goes back to that pre-aiming style that we talked about before. This one is the most predominant aiming style, and it's pre-aiming likely angles. Of course, we talk about crosshair placement a lot on this channel, but more than crosshair placement, it's just pre-peeking angles that you think enemies are already gonna be in. You're gonna get used to pre-peeking these angles the more you play the game, because honestly, you've been through so many scenarios in your mind that you're used to where enemies are playing. If you swing every angle as if someone is there, you're already lined up crosshair wise. You only have to do tiny adjustments, and from there, your crosshair is pretty much already perfectly on the enemy. All you have to do is swing them and react, use a little bit of that peeker's advantage, and pretty much just spray at them just as is. Now, another part about pre-aiming angles is as you walk around the map, not swinging, but you're trying to be stealthy and you're walking around, you're really holding your crosshair close to the edge of the wall, tracking the edge of the wall as you walk across it. So as you slide across a wall, if any head is on the other side of the wall slightly out of your FOV, then you're going to be able to just see them and kill them because you're perfectly tracking the wall. That's another aspect of pre-aiming likely angles. You're just slowly clearing every single angle you come across instead of fast swinging them, because that could give away your position. Now, moving on to the 7th thing that is most likely causing you to lose every gunfight and miss every shot, and this is holding likely checked areas. When enemies have to push through you, let's say that you planted the spike and they have to defuse and they have to push through where you are, holding a far away, not common angle is far better than holding a close angle between them and the spike that they have to check and they could check. The reason this is because the enemies are going to peek those angles. They're going to swing those angles. And if you're hiding in one of these angles and enemies swing it and they pre-aim that angle, you're just going to lose. Because like we said before, and we're going to repeat over and over again, the aggressor has the advantage because of peeker's advantage. If they peek your hiding spot with intent, then you're gonna die. The only way that you win that is either they don't check that angle or they peek it incredibly slowly. But a good player will not peek an angle that you're likely to be in between the place that they are and the place that they need to go, which is the spike defuse. They're gonna be peeking your angle with intent. They're not gonna be peeking your angle really, really slowly. And if they do, they're gonna do it really far from the pivot angle, which I'm gonna talk about in a second. So what I'm saying here is it's far better if you know where an enemy is routing from, put yourself in a position that is far away from any angle that they're most likely to check, and also one that is incredibly unlikely for them to check somewhere even out in the open or along a wall or a surface that is really unlikely for them to swing with intent, because they're not going to swing out into the open with intent. And if they do that, there's no way that they're just going to perfectly pick where you are in like a 270-degree radius. There's no way that they're going to be pre-aiming the exact spot where you are somewhere along that line. But if you're hiding in a corner, they don't have to win the 1 in 270-degree lottery. All they have to do is pre-aim that angle and swing it with purpose. And if you're there, they kill you. And if you're not, then they move on to the next angle and the next angle and the next angle. This is a really important concept to get down, and this might be getting you killed again and again in your games. So definitely think about it the next time you planted the spike or you're defending some sort of objective. Now moving on to the 8th reason that you might be losing a lot of gunfights, and this happens to a lot of people in general. You don't have to feel bad about it. It's just something that you have to conquer, and it's panic. Now, panic happens a lot, and it's exceptionally noticeable in pistol round, where instead of holding your ground and trying to take your time with your shots, you start firing, enemies are swinging you, you start panicking, and you start moving away while you're firing, and you're just missing. This can happen a lot, and this is a combination of anxiety and pressure. Now, unfortunately, there is no just clear-cut way to just all of a sudden get rid of your panic, other than become confident in your own mechanical abilities. Whether that means standing your ground, playing a lot of free-for-all, or whatever you have to, a lot of this is simply self-sabotage. And if you don't learn how to control yourself, control your panic, understand that maybe, yes, you will die if you stand your ground, but if you try to split the difference, you're not going to do anything anyways. There's no chance of you getting killed, and you're going to die anyways. So realize that your best chance to actually win a lot of these duels is, instead of panicking and doing some split the difference, run away while gunning thing, you stand your ground, you focus your shots and try to hit them, and you will be winning a lot more of these rounds. Now, the 9th thing that is most likely making it so you miss every single shot, and I mentioned this before, but I gotta reiterate it here, it's being too close to the pivot point. Now, understand, if an enemy is in a corner and you're checking that corner, if you are closer to the edge of that corner, which is what I call the pivot point, if you're closer to that corner than the enemy is to that corner, and you try to slow peek them, they will be able to actually see you before you see them. Now, if you are further back from the pivot point than they are from the pivot point, you will be able to see them before they see you if they stay in that corner and you're checking it very slowly. This is a really important concept, because a lot of times people are going to be slow peeking an angle from like middle of the hallway, and the enemy in the far back of the corner is actually going to see you first, when all you had to do was back yourself up to the farthest wall, and if you peeked them, they wouldn't have been able to see you, and you would have been able to see their shoulder or their foot before they saw you at all, get an easy kill on them. And this is a really big problem. A lot of CSGO players have this ingrained into their mind, but for the majority of players not coming from CSGO, this is something that's pretty unheard of, because it doesn't come up in a lot of other shooter games, but it's definitely something that you gotta learn if you want to become a master at Valorant. Then moving on to the 10th and final reason that you're consistently losing gunfights in Valorant, and this one's pretty simple, but it might be the most important thing, and it's not putting in the practice time to improve your mechanics. You see, grinding your aim takes time, and it's gonna be pretty difficult to learn the nuances of counter strafing, pre-aiming, slight tracking, and even flicking. All of this combined together will be your base game in Valorant. Now, you should be grinding your aim, making sure you warm up before every single game. You can have training in aim labs, Kovac, or whatever you want to do. Make sure you practice every different type of gun in the practice range. And of course, free-for-all is a great tool. Just pop on some tunes, play free-for-all throughout a day. Make sure that you practice your mechanics. Make strides to improve it, because a lot of times players think that the mechanics are good enough and they start to let it slag. But I'm telling you, there is no limit to how high your mechanical skill can go, and you could understand a lot about the game, be really good with your ability use, learn the game at a macro level, but your mechanics are so bad that it's holding you back over and over again. And I don't want that to be you, so definitely put the time and effort every single day. Put some time aside, maybe it's only 10, 15, maybe 30 minutes. Put some time every single day to grinding out your mechanical skill, and it will pay off dividends for you in your competitive rank. Now, speaking of paying off in dividends, the newly minted GameLeap website is finally released, and we have in-depth map guides, weapons guides, mechanical courses, everything you need in order to grind the ranks of Valorant. If you're dedicated to improve and want to climb the ranks of Valorant all the way to elite tier, then you definitely need to go check out our website in the links down below. But thank you so much for coming by. Definitely let us know what other content you want to see in the comments down below. But that's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time,